This is a Federal News Network podcast.
Recently, the Senior Executives Association announced the winners for its annual awards program. Among this year's winners was Avie Snow. Now retired, Snow spent several years as a financial manager for the Coast Guard, the Homeland Security Department, and ending at Veterans Affairs. I got the chance to speak with Avie to learn more about her career path.
I came to VA in 2014. I came there, I was hired to implement a new integrated finance and acquisition system. At the time, I don't know if they knew or if we knew about adding assets to that, integrated assets, finance and acquisition. But essentially that's why I was brought to the department. They had a antiquated, still do, over 40 years old, financial system, and it had never been integrated with the acquisition system. And so I came there to do that work. And that's what I did.
Yeah, and you say antiquated. Obviously, that comes with a whole host of problems. Coming from places such as Homeland Security and the Coast Guard, where maybe things are a little bit more updated. What were some of the challenges that came with having an antiquated acquisition system?
Interestingly, the biggest challenge of all was change management, is because when you have a system in place for that long and you have all the experts and you have all the people that know how to use it, they don't want to change. And VA is a behemoth. It's huge. It's, second only to DOD in size. And so, I had done this work at Coast Guard. I had, attempted to do the work at DHS. It was a very litigious environment, but we had implemented other systems, travel systems and whatnot, with 23 components. And I can honestly say that I had never come across a culture like VA where it was just, it is the culture that will stop it. I mean, the system works, but the real issue is that, will the culture accept the change? And change management was one of the biggest difficulties, I would say. So there's that aspect of it. And then because it's such a legacy environment, integrating with other legacy systems. I mean, VA has systems that are over 60 years old. They were in mumps. This is stuff that came out of MIT in the 70s. And early 80s. And so that, the technical aspects of some of that are very, very difficult. So you have the technology issues. The other thing is that you actually have hospitals. We can't interrupt that supply chain. I mean, you literally, we can't impact patient care. We can't impact veteran care. And so what happens is you're literally working in an environment where the systems, no matter how antiquated they are, they're necessary for the everyday care and feeding of a veteran.
Yeah, and obviously supply chain issues were front and center during the past 2 or 3 years or so. Given all the problems that arose from the pandemic, it made things put strain, obviously, on the medical system. What were your role, I guess, in managing just how, where finances were coming from weren't necessarily reliable?
Well, we were integrating with those systems. So we actually worked with those folks. I mean, those systems were in place and operating and whatnot. But our goal was to integrate seamlessly with those systems and not impact patient care in any way, or any, supplies to, hospitals or clinics or what have you. So, I mean, those operated as they do. It was our job to figure out how to integrate with those systems without impacting it. It's just all the things that have to be taken into consideration as you move forward with an effort of this scale.
We're speaking with Avie Snow. She is the retired Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary, Financial Management and Business Transformation, and also the recipient from the Senior Executives Association Senior Executive Professional Lifetime Achievement Award. Let's get into those words. Lifetime achievement, obviously a long career. If you could just give us a few highlights and what you feel are your biggest accomplishments, and why do you deserve this award, Avie?
Yeah, well, it's humbling, I'll tell you. I started out it's funny. I started out as an ADP intern in the 80s, and I went to the night vision lab, and we were very much, night vision was soldier in the field, and I worked on all kinds of different programs there. I was there for Operation Desert Storm, the original issues with Bosnia, so working on all those, part of big teams, really outfitting soldier in the field to accomplish, whatever the missions were. I also had the luck to be at night vision when everything started going to the web, and so, and it was a very innovative place to be. And it was research and development. And so I was really on that cutting edge of WWW, and it was interesting because the Army actually had ARPANET long before there was, the World Wide Web. And so I really learned a lot about technology there. And then I went to the Coast Guard, and of course, very, very different mission than the Army, but I got into more of what I would call support systems. I actually worked on, it's funny, I worked on the HR system at first, whatever, but I met Ed Murray, who actually was my boss's boss at the VA, and they were actually moving Coast Guard systems from, at the time, it wasn't even really client server, but it was really, they had just very localized systems, and we were moving everything to the web. So that's really where I got my experience with financial systems, simplified acquisition systems, and integration. Really doing a lot of cutting edge stuff, moving systems, because the Coast Guard was actually divided into quadrants. We had land area and pack area, and there was the North United States and the Southern United States, and of course Coast Guard, they had all the waters. Think about all the water, the waterways, the lakes, so what we started doing is consolidating everything and bringing everything to the web. And that's really where I got my start on the financial and acquisition system side. And I have to tell you, first of all, I loved working for the Coast Guard, and I had some of my biggest successes and some of my biggest failures. And they say you learn from your failures, and you really do. The first time we ever pulled together we had this, it was a simplified acquisition system, and we had 4 disparate databases serving those 4 quadrants of the United States for the Coast Guard. And we tried to bring those all together and put them on the web. And interestingly, the data it was a mess. And Admiral Allen, Thad Allen, was actually the chief of staff of the Coast Guard at the time. And he's like, Avie, you're going to fix this, right? And I go, yes, sir, I am. And so, but we learned a lot. We learned so much about data. We learned what happens with configurations and why, these things need to be vetted. And we learned about mock migrations of data and really, how to get something implemented correctly with data in place, the proper training, the proper testing, and that really was the foundation for everything that I did. But I have to say I had great success at the Coast Guard, and we were really ahead of our time. And I think what I didn't realize was I had a lot of people paving the way for me. And it really wasn't until I got to DHS where I realized that, because there I became like the front line. I became an SCS, and what I didn't know about the political world and OMB and how politics played into this, that's where I really learned that all those folks at the Coast Guard were paving the way for me to be able to work and deliver. And like I said, we had incredible success. 9/11 happened, and we were able to bring on TSA and the air marshals and domestic nuclear detection, bring them all onto one system, and then go from there. So at least they had finance and acquisition and simplified acquisition, that purchasing power, those kinds of things. And then, they asked me to come to the department and do the same, across of what was becoming the Department of Homeland Security. So I think the real success, to make a very long answer, just slightly longer, was really that ability to work and deliver at the Coast Guard. It really provided the foundation for everything that was to come.
Avie Snow is retired Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary for Financial Management with the Veterans Affairs Department. You can find this interview at our website. Head to federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Listen to the Federal Drive when you want, wherever you get your podcasts.